Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to Positive Energy Podcast, positive stories about positive people. As always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis, and this podcast is brought to you by the Peach Cobbler Factory, home to the world's most unique offering of desserts under one roof. The Peach Cobbler Factory has two convenient locations, one in the Anderson Town Center to the left of Kroger, and one in Hyde Park at 3646 Edwards to the left of Penn Station. Both locations are owned and operated by local residents. Peach Cobbler Factory is a proud supporter of this podcast, the Forest Hill School District, and the Anderson Township community. Is very thankful to Peach Cobbler for sponsoring us. Good and not only that, they help my stepson Zane, who does reviews every Sunday. It's called Sunday Sweets with Zane, and he does a great job. So we love that Peach Cobbler helps us out, and especially in a podcast like this. So, Steve, our next guest, Mike Craycraft, has an amazing story to tell. And his battle against I can't even say it. I knew I was going to mess this up.
Slow down.
Testicular cancer.
Yes.
I'm going to mess that up all day long.
I'll just go with that.
What he's done to help other people's and is inspiring, and just the story is is amazing. And it speaks volumes of guys kind of too here in this story. So can't wait to talk to Mike about this.
Well, yeah, and it's great to finally meet Mike after all these years. I've known who he was, but also, Danny, we've had some high quality people, but this guy, I remember he was honored for the Forest Hills Foundation as a distinguished alum, which was a very, very cool honor. I happened to be there for that ceremony, and it's cool to have somebody that was involved with that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And as we said, joining us is Mike Craycraft. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So let's kind of get started before we get into your story. Let's just talk about growing up, where you grew up. I'm most certain that you grew up in Anderson. Talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Anderson, and just growing up as a kid and everything like that.
Oh, I was born and raised in Anderson, essentially, and what an incredible community. Still, most of my closest friends today are still from Anderson. I'm very fortunate to get to travel quite a bit. I love to go out of town and run into old friends that live elsewhere. Really love the community. Grew up, played soccer here, baseball, all those things. So
and I think Steve said, did you play for Sully?
Yeah,
Brian Sullivan.
Yeah, I played for Brian at Anderson, and then went on, and Jack Hermans was there as well, and I played for him at Xavier University.
Jack Hermans. Nice. Oh, I didn't know you played at Xavier too. That's pretty awesome. So, and graduated, I believe what you told us off air was 1990. That's going to date us. Well, they already know how old we are, so we're going to have to throw you in that group with us. So.
Yeah.
So getting up there. So you were part of the group, I believe, that was like without a middle school, right? Or you guys went to?
We went to Forest Hills Junior School over there. Where Mercer
now,
used to be? Yeah,
Turpin
over
Middle.
at Turpin.
Right. All right. So that's when that was all part of that era.
Yeah,
it was a great experience though, because everyone in the district came together for those 2 years, and so a lot of my great friends were from Turpin even. I know senior spring break I went with mainly Turpin people.
Really?
Down to Florida. We'd had a soccer tournament in Charlotte, North Carolina, and guys on my team from Turpin were all going down to Siesta Key, and hey, all right, can I go?
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about the soccer team with playing for Sully, and because you guys were really good, I believe, right?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, we got inducted into the Anderson Sports Hall of Fame, as well as Brian. So
nice.
Yeah, just an incredible team, tons of talent. Great coach. And we knew Brian, or at least I did, before he became
coach.
Not
much older,
he was young.
Yeah.
And so it was, we got to go out there and play really hard, because we don't want to lose for our friend.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
So just going back a little bit further, where'd you go to elementary school?
So I went to Maddox, and yes, I was a member of the Maddox Mustang unicycle team.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nicely
and to
done.
answer your first question, one wheel has nothing to do with one testicle now. It's just a coincidence.
There's like
That's
7
awesome.
jokes there. But
Hold on.
Mike just said it.
That's it. Hold on. No, I got to find it. No, it's not it. Hold on. There's one on
Danny.
here. I lost it. I'm sorry. There's one I was going to give you.
The symbols.
Yeah. That was pretty good. I like that.
All right. So congratulations. You went on and played soccer at Xavier.
Yeah, I played 2 years there. I did my pre-pharmacy work there and then transferred to the University of Cincinnati for pharmacy school.
Okay.
And really just never picked it back up again.
Okay.
Wasn't sure how hard school was going to be. Then my second year of pharmacy school, I just got an internship at Christ Hospital and couldn't really say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be gone for the next 4 months.
Right.
And by my fifth year, I still could have been eligible, but at that point, I'm just out of shape and let's get through this and on with life.
I mean, talk a little bit about that with pharmacy school and how that was. I mean, I'm sure, like you said, being an athlete, trying to battle that too, it had to been extremely hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I found, even through high school and everything else, I seemed to do much better academically when I was busy. So idle time, I just didn't apply myself. And my actual interview for pharmacy school was with the assistant dean, and we spent most of the interview talking about soccer because his daughter was a big soccer player.
Really?
And then at the end, he said, how's your grades? And I said, well, they're fine, except I got a C in English, which is pretty embarrassing in college to get a C in English. But he's like, okay. And, obviously let me in.
Yeah.
Were there any other local guys that played with you at Xavier?
Yeah. Brad Sullivan played. Kyle Schertzer played.
That's right. Yeah.
So, So those were the two Anderson guys when I was there.
Wow.
And then Turpin guys. I'm starting to blank now. Jeff Betts. And,
Jeff Betts. I remember him.
Oh, man. I'm blanking on the last person. I'm embarrassed now. Yeah. There was 5 of us from Anderson Township.
It's impressive.
That's saying something.
Yeah, I mean, which goes back to the whole thing. It was, man, imagine if they were all on the same team.
Yeah,
yeah.
State champions every year.
We say that all the time. Yeah. All right, so Mike, let's dive into this the story that you have to tell, which is we're glad you're here to tell it about your fight with cancer and take us back to when you found out, how long ago that was, and obviously what it's all about and the symptoms that you were feeling.
Yeah. So I was actually living in South Florida, down in Boca Raton in 2006, and it was the busiest hurricane season of the year. And then my storm hit right in the middle of that. So Hurricane Wilma came, knocked out all of the power, everything else for a couple of weeks. And a couple of days after Wilma hit, one of my friends here from Anderson, Kevin, called me just to see if I made it through the hurricane. And there's no heat, it's hot, or there's no AC, it's hot. Just went to adjust myself on the couch and immediately was like, oh no, I have cancer. I got to let you go, and hung up on him. But then it started.
Hold on, just because you,
all I did was just feel a ridge when I went to adjust myself. Yeah, and I was like, oh no, there's a lump. Something's wrong. It must be cancer. But I really didn't know anything about testicular cancer. I mean, my pharmacy work was mainly completely out of the oncology realm. I knew that there was a thing called testicular cancer. I didn't really know anything much else about it. And so I was pretty naive about the whole situation. It really started what was kind of a vicious cycle of, okay, well, I'll call the doctor. I really didn't have a primary care physician. I picked one out just for insurance. And, it's awkward at the time. Like, I'm going to call somebody I've never seen and say, by the way, I think I have something wrong with my testicle. And so it took me quite a long time. I actually came up here for Thanksgiving, and by that time I had kind of convinced myself that I had metastatic disease and was going to pass away from it. And I threw a party the day after Thanksgiving, figuring, most of my friends will realize I bought all the drinks. It was a feeble attempt to see them one last time. And then just kept doing, my good friends were getting married that weekend. I can't come home at Thanksgiving and say, pass the turkey, my testicle has cancer. It's just.
So you didn't tell anybody?
No.
And you had a party and you didn't tell anybody at the party?
No, I just invited everyone down to Mount Lookout for the party and figured, in a couple of months they'll figure out what's going on with me.
I want to quickly go back real quick to, because as guys, we've talked about this on episodes with some of the other guys that we've talked about, and you're being a guy, you're like, oh, I'm fine or whatever, and I'm not trying to get too graphic about it, but like, you felt a bump. I mean, your ball is a bump, basically, your testicle is a bump. So did you feel a bump on a bump, or what was the you know what I mean? Like, how, like anybody. I don't know.
Right. No, I get it. I think the easiest way to describe it is you think of a football, right? So football is smooth. It's round, except for where that seam is. And not the laces, but the seam. There's just like a little bit of a ridge or a little bit of bump there when it's sewn together. And that's exactly what it felt like. As a matter of fact, I would get hot flashes at night. And so, your scrotum's hot, your testicles sags down, and I would feel it. And I'd be like, okay, I'm calling the doctor tomorrow. I definitely felt something. And then the next day, I would get to work, and I would conveniently remember that I needed to call the doctor at lunch. And the office is closed. Right. And then I get busy again and conveniently remember after the office was closed at 5. And so it was a vicious cycle, really started to develop and went on for months and months. How can I come home for Christmas and ruin the holidays or New Year's or my dad's birthday in January? Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of it was, probably part of it was fear, part of it was denial. And I think the biggest part was not wanting to let down others. How do you tell your parents that, hey, I'm sick, I have cancer, or your friends? And that was really kind of the biggest thing, I think, that kept me silent.
Wow. I mean, and so you did go to the doctor. And when you go to the doctor, describe a little bit about that when you're with the doctor and obviously you had the cancer and him telling you that. What were your emotions like? Were you like, oh, I knew it? Or was it just devastated? I mean, what was your first initial thought when they told you that?
Yeah, well, I lived like I was dying for 7 months and then finally went to the doctor in June of 2006. So it was quite a long while later. Went into the primary care and walked in. Doctor comes in the room. I'm like, I think I have a lump on my testicle. And it took 3 seconds to say, but it took me 7 months to get the balls up to say it to my doctor. And he just gave it a quick feel, said, I might feel something. How about we get you an ultrasound to see what's going on? And, you work at the hospital, so it's not a big deal whatsoever, but it might be a little awkward if you see the sonographer on the, the elevator. So we'll send you over here to get it done. And And then a couple days later, he called saying, I want you to go see a urologist. And I was like, okay. So made the phone call. Was going to be able to see the urologist within a week. My favorite beach bar had just reopened because it had burnt down. And so I'm going to the reopening party, and I wanted to be the first customer because, I've been known to like a beer or two. And so I was showing up earlier, and my phone rang. It was after hours. I didn't recognize the number, ignored it. I got my voicemail, and here was the urologist, and he was calling to say that my primary care doctor had called him personally for my referral, and then I could come in anytime I wanted the next day. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with physicians, but when they say you can come in anytime you want the next day, it's usually not to give you an award or a reward. It's to tell you you have cancer. Okay. So went in the next day to the urologist and was a little hungover and looking and feeling my best when I got there. And he just, simply did did the physical exam, said to me that it appeared that I had testicular cancer. Had called over to the radiologist when I was in the room to recheck the reading. And I really was kind of relieved. I'm like, yeah, I'm right. Most people are devastating. They're not prepared for it. I had known for 7 months. It was kind of like, okay. And he said to me, well, you work at the medical center. I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, you've actually helped me with quite a few of my patients. He's like, 2 were my hardest to treat. And 1, I called at like 11 o'clock at night, you were there. I'm like, well, that's the benefits of management. You get to be there at 11 o'clock at night for everything. And he goes, well, don't worry. You took care of my patients. I'll take the best care of you. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to die? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, can I get some money back? He just looked at me and goes, what? I'm like, never mind. Okay.
Oh, my gosh. Just another, to feed off a little bit of that, going to the bathroom, did it hurt? Did it hurt during certain things when you sat down? And you said you did this for 7 months. So was there times when there were certain things that you did that, sitting on certain things, the way you sat, the way anything like that, did any of that bother you?
No, about a month before I felt the lump, I was dating a girl down in Florida, and I remember complaining to her because my sack felt really heavy. Like I was walking around with extra weight in my shorts. And, come to find out that is, a warning sign of testicular cancer. She doesn't like did I blame her for giving me the cancer, which is absolutely cannot happen. She's a great friend to me now to this day. But I'm like, you remember that weekend when my sack and you gave me yeah, no, but I mean, I looked fine, felt fine. I'd gone on 2 last-minute ski trips out west. I think it's my last time over to the snow ski. I had a particularly bad day at work, and one of the guys here from the junior school who went to Turpin, lived down in St. Croix, said, come down here for the weekend for Easter. I did that. And the week before I even went into the primary care, I had one last hurrah. Like, again, everything. After this, I'll go to the doctor. After that, I'll go to the doctor. Yeah. And that last hurrah was going down to Costa Rica to go surfing. I didn't know how to surf and wanted to learn. And at the time, in my idiot head, I'm like, well, if I die as a surfer, people think I'm a lot cooler anyway. So, I'm surfing in Costa Rica the week before I go in and start the whole diagnosis process.
Yeah. What about to the touch though? Was it sensitive? Did it hurt? None of that?
No, and only about 20% of the time is testicular cancer actually painful.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not a very good indicator of anything. But I'd gone in for a second opinion, and I'm in South Florida, and I went in to see the radiation oncologist and walked up to the front desk and said, hey, I'm Mike Craycraft. I'm here to see Dr. Green. And the lady picked up the phone and paged Dr. Green overhead. Yeah. And I'm looking and I'm like, I'm the patient, right? She's like, oh, no, I thought you were like a drug rep. Okay, here's your clipboard. Go sit down. Because they weren't used to seeing, a 33-year-old healthy male coming into the cancer center. They're used to 80-year-olds in South Florida. Yeah. So I'm like, I guess I take this as good. I don't look like a cancer patient.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
I to take off the Jimmy Surger, I think we have a book in the making here.
Absolutely.
Because just it's a couple different chapters here. 7 months of keeping it to yourself is mind-blowing.
It really is.
And having a party. I don't want to have that overshadow the pain and everything you went through, but just a mental game.
The emotions.
Played with yourself.
It was mental torture.
Yeah.
You're sitting at work. I had 50 employees, and someone comes in and they say I can't come in tomorrow. My cat's sick, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, really? Because I have cancer.
Yeah.
But I haven't said a word to anyone, and that's not a really good boss when you have that in the back of your mind.
And what year was this, Mike? Again?
So this was 2005 into 2006. I was diagnosed in June of 2006.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead, Danny. I'm still blown away here.
It really is, and I'm going to kind of feed off of like what Steve said, because I'm blown away too. Because Steve and I are really close. We've been best friends since middle school, high school, and we know so much about each other that we can feed off each other, and to not tell your friends blows me absolutely, because he'd be the first. I'd be like, Jesus, man, I got immediately, like, and I would tell other people, and I'd feel comfortable with him telling. I would need that to talk to somebody, that friend, that person, to get that kind of off your chest. I can't imagine going through that, not really telling a soul.
Yeah, it just, I don't know why. I also spent a lot of time, introspect, I guess, or the wrong word, but, looking inside myself, and I'm like, to be honest, I've had a great life. I grew up in Anderson. I played soccer. I traveled with club soccer. I had great friends.
Yep.
I really have nothing to complain about. I'm not married. I've never had any kids. I was a pharmacist at 22 years of age. If this is the thing that's going wrong with me, it's a numbers game. It's going to happen to somebody, and maybe it's a good thing it's happening to me.
Yeah,
is kind of as dumb as that sounds. It's not to sound like a martyr either.
Yeah,
but that's what I thought about. And I went from being normal emotions to watching things on TV and just sitting there by myself crying.
I can't even imagine.
Someone got an applause, I'd be like, oh. It completely changed the way I looked at things.
I can't even imagine. Just everything that, we've been through a lot of stuff in our lives and everything. And I just can't even imagine that, Mike. That's crazy. But everybody deals with things in a different way. And, we're going to get into a little bit later on about everything else.
Yeah. That's you.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
See, Steve, that's unbelievable.
I take these questions.
You guys are like mentally, like telepathy.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we do all the time. See, Mike, you'll find out. We've been friends for a long time, and we try to mess with each other during these podcasts. Sometimes he'll take my question, and then he'll give me the look to see if I'm going to get mad or laugh or do whatever. Right. So right now, as you're going down our little list that we have here, he's off again. So he's but that's okay. But I'll go ahead and just get started. So one of the things about this, I guess, that you could say would be a good thing would be the foundation that you started. You're saying that you were trying to think of ways to get going. So talk about when that entered your mind, and then how aggressively you went after it and thought, man, let's go with this.
Yeah, well, when I was diagnosed, there weren't very many resources for testicular cancer at all. There was people back then on what was called MySpace, and so you'd be able to find someone that had it and try to reach out to figure out, how did they deal with stuff. Yeah,
MySpace.
If we didn't date ourselves already.
Wow.
There were actually real people on there.
Yeah.
And it was probably about a year and a half after my diagnosis, I really got serious, and there was an event in Indianapolis called the Race to Replace Lance Armstrong, if you remember that.
Sure.
And it was a bicycle race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to benefit Livestrong. And so I thought, man, if I do one lap around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a unicycle, which is one wheel, and I have one ball, this could be a big fundraiser.
Oh,
absolutely.
My gosh.
And so I reached out to, at the time, Livestrong, and they got back to me. I was, I guess I take that back. It wasn't a year and a half after, because I was like 6 weeks after my surgery when I was originally thinking about it. And they said, well, great. Love the idea, but the insurance, we're the beneficiaries. We don't put on the event.
Right.
And the insurance is you got to be on a 2-wheeled cycle.
Oh.
And so I'm thinking, well, I just had cancer. I'm not going to take no for an answer. So I'm going to go up to Cincinnati. I'm going to rent a helicopter. I'm going to fly into the infield. I'm going to ride my unicycle until I get arrested. And that'll raise some funds. And then I thought, well, why am I getting arrested, if I don't have to? And so I thought, one day I'll just start an organization, and they're going to end up coming to me for stuff. And so that kind of was the basis of it. And the more and more time I spent around, learning from other guys being diagnosed, and realized that, they really didn't know where to go, what to do, and had a lot of unmet needs. I figured out that I was kind of uniquely positioned, both as a healthcare professional, even though I was an idiot about my own disease, and a survivor. And I would be able to kind of bring that together, where I can talk to the experts of the world on testis cancer. I'm in some of their groups considered peers. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also able to take that complicated information as a pharmacist and relate it back to, normal lay individual that might not have that background.
That's incredible. No, go ahead.
No, it really is. And how do you get started with that? What was one of the first things you had to do? Obviously, you got to be a non-profit. Is it a non-profit? Is that what it is? And talk a bit about the ups, downs, struggles, whatever that was to get this initially going, and then how soon after that did it take off for you?
The struggle's real. You have absolutely no idea what you're doing. You just have an idea, And so the first was to, go to the Secretary of State in Florida and figure out how do you file articles of incorporation for a nonprofit. Did that, and then I really did that in 2008 finally. And really didn't know what else I was doing, build a website, I guess, is what we need to do. And so figured that out, and just really kind of piddled with it. Was doing all the side work, reaching out to survivors and helping people. But as far as organizationally, it wasn't very good. And then, 2008 to 2010, I kind of wasn't sure if I was going to be here in Cincinnati or Florida. I was back and forth a lot. And to apply to get your IRS status, you really didn't want to mess up the application, and you didn't want to be like, well, I'm in Cincinnati, but I'm applying in Florida, but then I'm in Florida sometimes. And so I kind of sat on it and then reformulated it here in Cincinnati and got our 501c3 approval. And then, it's slow going. This is a disease that affects primarily younger men that face financial toxicity going through it, especially now with high deductible healthcare plans and everything else. And so you help somebody and they might want to give back, but they really can't afford it. And it's not on the radar of breast cancer or prostate cancer. And so it's really difficult to find funding, I remember at the beginning just, beating up friends, hey, can you go here for 10% for a meal, or will you come here for a happy hour? And the bar will, do a kickback, and really trying to figure that out. And then it just kind of, you keep plugging and it takes off. And, we've had some incredible partners over the last few years that really, the pandemic, you can talk about that for an hour, but we actually excelled during the pandemic, which was absolutely crazy, and really kind of took off from there, and are continuing just to climb, incredibly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Mike, let me go back here real quick. So, tell me again the timeline from the time that you actually went to the doctor. Forget the 7 months. That the time you went to the doctor to the time that you were basically considered clear at that point, and then from that point, how long until you came up with the idea of the foundation?
Yeah, so I originally went to the doctor, had surgery, and got the pathology in June of 2006.
Okay.
I ended up being stage 1 disease, which should be limited to the testicle. So in theory, once they removed it, I should have been cured.
Okay.
I had some treatment decisions to make there. I had 3 different choices. I chose to be actively monitored, and did that for 5 years to make sure it didn't come back. I originally formed the organization in 2008. So within a year and a half, really, of my diagnosis, that I actually, do the paperwork and get things going.
Okay. So in addition to this foundation, which is incredible, because a lot of people would go and hide and go on with their life, and you've decided to give back, which is just incredible. I read where you were also a mentor for Immerman's Angels. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, which is very, very cool. And if you don't know about it, and it's just, I never knew what Immerman Angels was until last week. And then we get, Mike to come on the podcast, and my daughter, who's a senior at Ohio State, she does marketing for Immerman Angels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Crazy?
She's a senior at Ohio State right now, and in fact, she has had lunch with some big wig and then talking about how to go out and promote and get mentors and how to get the word out more for Immerman Angels.
Yeah, well, there's an aside. There was Camp Kesem at Ohio State, and it's a camp for kids whose parents have been affected by cancer.
Okay.
And it's run by students. And I'm trying to think, 2010 to maybe 2012, I actually sat on the advisory board at Ohio State for them. So we would guide the students on how to throw this summer camp.
Yeah.
But Immerman Angels was founded by a guy, Johnny Immerman, out of Chicago, who coincidentally is a testicular cancer survivor, and really, needed someone to show him the ropes. Exactly what I was looking for as well. Mm-hmm. And looking back, we talk about guys and not wanting to do things,
Right.
I remember I got a brochure from the American Cancer Society on prostate cancer, which I didn't have, and self-esteem, which I thought I was okay with, and support groups. And I was like, support groups? I don't need a support group for this. But I didn't know, is reaching out on MySpace and tracking down people from news articles and Google searches really was forming my own support group. But that's what Immerman Angels does, is provides one-on-one support for individuals affected by cancer and the caregivers. They're out of Chicago, and they do incredible work, and it really is beneficial that you can get matched up with someone just like you, who's same age, same diagnosis, marital status, kids, education. It's really phenomenal.
It's got to be a relief just to feel like you have somebody that's been through it and on your side, and a great support system, just like having a best friend.
Yeah, and there's quite a few different programs out there similar to Immerman's Angels. So I do that with them as well. The Fourth Angel program out of Cleveland Clinic. There's also the My Connection, Cancer Connection out of MD Anderson, where I'm registered. They get a match. They'll send us, send that person my way, and I can help them, go through the ropes.
Okay. Do you work with people that are unsure, or is it this is people that are actually they have been diagnosed?
These are usually people that have already been diagnosed and staged and have an idea of what their treatment options might be or going to have to be.
Okay.
With the organization, we deal with everybody.
Yeah.
From I think I might have a lump to any question whatsoever. I mean, we run the world's largest forums on testicular cancer, so there's quite a few times when it's not even in English that I'm trying to help. Spanish and French and Italian's kind of easy. Bulgarian's a little more tough.
A little tougher.
Polish is a little tough. But nowadays, if you can get it in the writing, you can translate it enough. And if not, we usually have someone that we can reach out to. Believe it or not, there's a couple of survivors from Bulgaria that I know, and we'll help.
That's incredible.
Hey, we're stuck. Can you talk to this person and figure out exactly what they're asking?
That's all part of your book, Mike. Those are the great stories.
Just give us credit. Just give us some credit.
We just want a little our names
just say that the podcast
dedicated to.
That's all.
But to your foundation, I mean, is that when you're talking to these people, whether it be with the Immerman Angels, I mean, is there something that you do, or would they ask you, like, how do you go about checking yourself if you're unsure before you call the doctor?
Yeah, I mean, most of the people have either been diagnosed or they've done a self-exam, or their partner has somehow found a lump and brought it up to them, and so they're calling. And I guess there's the kind of I think I feel something, I'm not sure. What do I do? Where do I go? What doctors do I go to? And then there's I've been diagnosed. What now? I was just told today with the ultrasound, now I need surgery, I need, the staging and lab work and all that kind of stuff. Where do we go from here? And then, during treatment and believe it or not, after treatment, you get all through this stuff in a short, quick term. Even if you need 9 or 12 weeks of chemotherapy, all of a sudden it ends and you're sitting there a couple months later and you're thinking, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, what did I just go through?
Right.
And that's kind of when it can hit the fan. And so, we support all through survivorship. I mean, we've had one individual I can think of just had a bad day at work and, had been diagnosed 17 years earlier, and someone said something wrong at work and just it set him off. Coincidentally, he worked in a pathology department, and the person was like, well, I don't care, it's close enough. And he's like, no, as a cancer survivor, he's like, you don't understand. So he called. But we do that for patients and their caregivers. I would say 60% of the people we help are the females in the guys' lives that's been diagnosed. Yes, it is typically it's a guy that receives the diagnosis, but it affects everyone around.
Absolutely.
And, again, guys aren't always the easiest to reach out.
And it's all ages too, right, Mike?
Yeah. So testicular cancer is a leading cause of cancer in 15 to 35-year-olds. You can even do 44, depending on how you break down the numbers. It primarily a younger man's disease, but it can occur at any age. I've helped a mom interpret lab values for a 9-month-old child, and I've helped a 78-year-old guy in the hospital on chemotherapy, just off the top of my head. So there is no limit.
Wow. So like a lot of things, I mean, is this something that's like you could say it's hereditary, or is this just something that's just uncommon? It comes up. So
when I was diagnosed, we'd say no, it's not hereditary. Don't worry about it. What we found out now is that yes, it's actually one of, if not the most heritable cancers that's out there. You hear a lot about breast cancer being hereditary and the BRCA mutation and things. Testicular cancer, about 50% of the cases they're thinking are actually hereditarily caused. But there isn't just one mutation. There's a whole bunch of different ones. And so you don't get that kind of, you can test for it or those kind of things. But we didn't think that 18 years ago. Now
but look at what you're doing. It's incredible.
So, I mean, is it, silly to say that, that somebody that has it and just don't do anything about it? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how we are, guys are, they're like, I'm okay, it's just a little bump or this or that. And I mean, would it end up obviously killing them, I guess, right? If they didn't get treated or didn't get fit, you know what I mean? I guess I'm trying to get at, like, if you didn't decide, like, well, I'm okay, I'm just not going to go to the doctor, would it be just getting to the point where it gets too painful and then, it spreads through everything else? I mean, I'm trying to get a grip on that.
Yeah, so one of the greatest things about it is we know a lot about the disease, how it spreads. So, I was born in the early 70s, and if you had metastatic disease, so it had spread from the testicle, your survival rate for 5 years was 5%.
Oof. Wow.
So, and because of the invention and the chemotherapy, that we basically still use the exact, almost same regimen today. The first patient received that in 1974, John Cleland. He just passed away last year, actually.
Wow.
Now the overall survival rate is 95%.
Dang.
So completely flipped. But in stage 1 disease, like I had, it's essentially curable. So it's over a 99% 15-year survival, and that's just how far they've measured out in studies. One thinks at 15 years it should be, for the rest of your life. But then at later stages, it's not. If you're diagnosed at stage 3, so stage 1 is limited to testicle. Stage 2 basically goes into the abdomen, into the lymph nodes in the abdomen, into the lung, and then from there it can go to the brain and the bones or other organs, which is more rare. But so that isn't. That survival rate's still down in the 70%.
Wow. God, that's just absolutely crazy and amazing, thing that you've done, everything with your foundation to just, finally getting the courage to take care of this. I mean, it's, we've a couple of our guys that we've talked to that had some of this, all kind of the guy thing, like, I'll be okay, or, and then we had a friend, Doug Ass, that was on here that had a heart attack, had cancer, and his wife was the one that said, all right, we're kind of pushed him to get going. I think that's been a lot of the cases, where the guys are just stubborn, or they just think they're too manly or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, that's just the mentality that we have, I think.
Yeah, well, I think, I used to say, it's probably just yourself to the grave, so you find something wrong, you're like, I just lift too much at the gym, or it's probably I rode the bike too long, or I did this or that. Yeah. Just go get checked out. If anything else, it's peace of mind. I've not met one physician out of 18 years of doing this would be mad if you came in and you did not have testicular cancer. Right. They're like, oh, okay, great. This is a benign condition. But looking at athletes too, I just thought about this today. There's quite a few athletes that have been diagnosed because they failed drug tests. PED test. Dylan Tombadis, who was a player for West Ham in the UK, was one of them that I remember for certain. Francesco Acerbi in Italy, where they went in and their beta HCG, so that same hormone that you measure in pregnant women, or HCG, human growth factor, or human growth hormone, is elevated. And they're like, must we use performance-enhancing drugs? And, we've been big proponents of, no, the first thing, if you get a wrong test for that, go do a scrotal ultrasound, because you're probably going to find a lump in there and save them a whole bunch of bad press.
Right. Wow. Well, let's talk about your support system, your friends, your family, your parents. They're down in Florida now. When did they move down there, and were they down there when you were diagnosed?
No, they were still up here in Cincinnati. Okay. So I actually called them, said I need surgery, called them back, said never mind. They were going to come down. And I was like, no, it's not necessary. It's an easy outpatient surgery. I'll just leave from there, from the recovery room, and go into my office, because I was in management at the same facility, and I'll just sleep on the ground until I can drive home. And they're like, well, for these past few years, you've always gone to Lake Cumberland with Don Klein,
Don Klein, yes, sir.
And they said, well, you're probably not going to be able to drive the car, and you're probably not going to be able to fly. So if you let us come down, we'll bring a motorhome. They had a motorhome. We'll pick you up and drive you up to Lake Cumberland. And so that's exactly what they did, and I allowed them. I'm like, okay, that seems like a good deal. And they ended up, I was glad they were there for the first couple of days.
Wow.
And, recovery wasn't too bad, but it was nice to have them there.
Yeah, and they're still living down there?
Yeah, so they moved down probably 2004, I think, 2003, something like that. So
good for them.
Yeah.
Living the good life.
Yeah, retired early, and
that's the way to go.
Out in Florida,
And then obviously your friends. Obviously, you mentioned Don Klein. Some of the other people. I think you said Kevin Area, I think, was another one. Yeah. So guys from high school, and just a good support group. And I've always heard other people that whether I've seen it on Facebook, not MySpace anymore, because I never was on that one, but about people supporting you. I remember seeing stuff like that. So it's just been a pretty awesome thing to have the community here in Anderson, especially, wrap their arms around you and help you out with that.
Yeah, I had that first Thanksgiving at Kevin's when I threw the party, and I thought I was dying, and then I came back the next year and had Thanksgiving at Kevin's when I threw the next party, saying, hey, guess what, I was wrong, I'm still here.
Yeah, did you go back and tell those people?
Well, I tried. I invited everyone. That party was worse because I had gone back down to Costa Rica to go surfing and came back with dengue fever. So I didn't have the nerve to tell my mom that. I did tell her I was in Mercy Anderson with dengue fever, but I didn't want her to know that my risk of death there was higher than my testicular cancer.
Oh my gosh!
Within 6 months, I don't think she would have been able to handle it too well.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, the community in general, absolutely amazing. When I was going through it and staying silent and made peace with the fact I was going to pass away, that doesn't mean I wanted to die, but I just kind of accepted it. Like, this is what's going to happen. Why fight it? And it was those individuals in my life, the friends, the family, that really made my life special. Not anything I did in particular.
Right.
And so that's continued through all these years.
That's awesome.
I'm just gonna that just got me thinking about something. That we all, not men, women, everybody gets mad about the little things. They get pissed about someone cutting them off or this and that, and then all the things that you were saying that were going through you as well. I'm gonna die. I might as well go do this, go to Costa Rica, do this, do that, and it just puts things in perspective that when you're going through something that physically and mentally and all that stuff, that put that crap in perspective and just appreciate the everyday and the family, the friends, and that's kind of what you did in a way that didn't tell anybody, but then afterwards you did it, and shows how important family and friends are.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near perfect, and there's always little things that irritate, but I agree. In general, the outlook. I don't know what my life would be like without the cancer, but I sure love the one I have now. Right. And I can tell you that my outlook has changed dramatically from the diagnosis to now. I'm sure. And I don't know. I'm fine with it. So.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Well, let's let everybody out there know where they can help out, fight cancer, and talk a little bit about your foundation, where they can go to find that out.
Yeah. So I founded the Testicular Cancer Society. So it's testicularcancersociety.org. You want to help educate young men in your life about testicular cancer. It's not hard. You don't need to know anything about it. We have a mobile app that gives a couple of facts about it, as well as how to do a self-exam and the ability to set a monthly reminder. You can just tell them to go to ballchecker.com. Yes, we sophomoreically do ballchecker.com because no one's going to go to testicularcancersociety.org/ballchecker.
There you go.
So, just tell them to go to ballchecker.com and they can download the app at the app stores, and that's all they need. If anything's wrong, our contact information's in there. It's been downloaded in 152 different countries. Last check, and
that's great.
We have WhatsApp connection in there, so we get messages from all over the world with questions.
Loving the shirt too. The ballin' shirt, gotta love that.
Ballin', yeah.
gotta love that.
This was created our partners at Manscaped, who's done absolutely. Can't even tell you how much they've meant to our organization. And
great.
Really have internalized this, and anything that we possibly need, they take care of.
That's awesome.
So they helped design all this stuff. So.
Yeah, and just real quick, before we end, and I know that you say you do a lot of traveling, and that's obviously with the foundation, right? So are you going all over the country? I know you said you were in Indy last weekend, right?
Yeah, not so much since the pandemic. Okay. There's a lot of conferences and this and that kind of shut it down. The last few years, most of my traveling has been chasing Jimmy Buffett around.
Yes.
I wanted to see as many concerts as I could before he passed away, and ended up in 99. So not only am I a testicle short, but I'm one Jimmy Buffett concert short of 100 too. So
well, they do have a tribute one coming to town,
and I've done that, but it doesn't officially count.
That's right.
I'm gonna have to be on a different planet to get my 100th show. So I'm perfectly fine stuck with 99 for quite a while.
That is awesome. This takes a lot to come and talk about that, and we really appreciate it. that's kind of why we do these different podcasts. This positive energy is to see how you've turned this into a positive and the influence that you've made on a lot of people. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm glad that we finally got to get together. I know we've been working on it for a little bit, but thanks for taking the time to talk to us about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me, and thanks everyone else for listening as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But again, our podcast is brought to you by the Peach Cobbler Factory, home to the world's most unique offering of desserts under one roof. The Peach Cobbler Factory has 2 convenient locations, one in Anderson Town Center to the left of Kroger, and one in Hyde Park at 3646 Edwards to the left of Penn Station. Both locations are owned and operated by local residents. Peach Cobbler Factory is a proud supporter of this podcast, the Forest Hill School District, and the Anderson Township community. Again, Steve, we got to let everybody know here that's watching us, don't forget to subscribe or like our podcast. We've got This Week in Anderson, Positive Energy, and Dingo the Coach on YouTube and other social media platforms. And if you're interested in being a sponsor for our podcast, please reach out to either Steve or myself, and we would love for you to be a part of our podcast. And we've had great support throughout the community, and really appreciate it. And it's been fun, and we really love doing something like this again for like a guy like Mike.
Love doing this.
Yeah, so it's been pretty awesome. So Mike, we really appreciate it. So again, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Mike Craycraft, you've been listening to Positive Energy Podcast, positive stories about positive people. Have a good night.